Okay, it's 6:32, so let's go ahead and begin, and hopefully more people join us. Thank you so much, everyone who has joined us today. We're really happy to see you. We're glad that you're here. If this is your first time, welcome. This is our last session from our three-part series, My Local Government, where you get to learn just really basic stuff about your local government, but hopefully a lot of these things, people are learning new things. The first one, we just talked about form of government and the type of government that we have here in Raleigh. Then we talked about budgets and finance. And in this last session, we are going to be talking about stormwater management. And we picked the perfect day for it. It was intentional because we knew it was going to rain today. So I'm kidding about that, obviously, but it just happened to be. So it was meant to be that today Wayne would be with us to talk about stormwater. It's not a division that we hear a lot about, but it's definitely one of the most important departments because you get to see it. It's something that sometimes we don't realize how important it is. So Wayne is going to talk to us a lot more about it, and kind of hopefully after this class, you get to understand the whole stormwater management division a little bit better. So without further ado, Wayne, please take over.
All right, I will. Thank you so much, Ellen, and thank you for the invitation. I'm really excited to be here, and it is a nice day to talk about stormwater. We like when it rains because everybody recognizes the importance of stormwater. Rain brings us growth and flowers and lots of spring weather. But when stormwater comes down too fast, it can cause some flooding, and that causes problems. And I'll be talking a little bit more about that through my presentation. But we do all kinds of work for the city. We help manage floods and floodplains. We do construction work on stormwater pipes, replacing aging infrastructure, maybe making the pipes larger if they need to be. We improve streams and stream banks and help stabilize those streams, as well as promote stormwater infiltration and green stormwater infrastructure to help improve water quality. And I'll be talking more about all of those things as I go through the presentation. First, though, I do want to make a distinction between stormwater and wastewater. So on the right is stormwater, and stormwater comes when it rains and only when it rains. The runoff from a hard rainfall, when the ground can't absorb the rainfall anymore, that water then runs off into the creeks and streams and rivers. And it's a natural process that happens in completely undeveloped areas. But when we have urban areas like Raleigh, where we've paved streets, where we build buildings and houses, that stormwater can't infiltrate into the ground as well anymore. And so the amount of stormwater that runs off into the creeks and streams increases. And when we get a really hard rainfall event, that's when flooding occurs, when those streams don't have the capacity to carry that flow downstream fast enough, and the streams and the creeks rise. Sometimes they'll rise out of their banks. Sometimes they'll even back up over roads, and in very extreme events, they'll back up and flood into homes and buildings. And all of these scenarios we need to be prepared for. And I'll show you a little bit later on in the presentation how we monitor those levels of where the creek elevations are rising to, so that we can help keep people safe and notify people before flooding occurs. So that's everything on the right side of this picture. On the left side that I want to contrast is wastewater or sanitary sewer flows. And that comes from what is in your house. When you flush your toilet, when your water goes down your sink, that goes to a separate piping system called the sanitary sewer. And all of that wastewater flows down to a treatment plant where it is treated to a very high level and clarified and sanitized and disinfected, and then discharged into the river. Okay, so that's a completely different system. I want to emphasize stormwater on the right side hand side of the picture is not treated by any type of a plant. So it's very important to recognize whatever you pour into that storm drain along the side of the road, whether that be paint or oil or anything like that, next time it rains, that's going to be washed right into the creek. So please avoid putting anything in the storm drain, even litter, plastic bottles, all of that gets washed directly to the creek and causes downstream pollution. So all important lessons to keep in mind. So the stormwater program for the city of Raleigh has a mission, and our mission is to manage stormwater to preserve and protect life, support healthy natural resources, and complement sustainable growth for the community. It's a lofty goal, but we work very hard to accomplish this mission every day. We are guided by a 10-person body that is of volunteers that are appointed by City Council, and they are called the Stormwater Management Advisory Commission. And we have two brand new members that I don't have pictures of, so that's the white spots on the right. But this group meets monthly. Those meetings are open to the public, and we encourage and welcome anyone to attend in person. They're always the first Thursday of the month at 3 o'clock, and we have just started meeting again in person. And they are located at 2550 Operations Way. It's out at our Transportation Field Services building where our stormwater maintenance crews work. And you can find more information about the location and the agenda on the city's website. But those are open to the public, and we do also stream those meetings virtually, as well as having in person. If you just like to watch along, those meetings are streamed. And the Stormwater Management Advisory Commission gives us guidance in terms of policy changes. It helps us set priorities in terms of where we're spending the funding that is collected from the residents on your water and sewer bill. There's a stormwater fee, and that's what funds our program. So this is a very important group, and it's important. They're our permanent voice from the community, and we also work very hard to get other input from the community to set our priorities. And I'll talk a little bit more about how we do that as well. The vision of our program is to be the smartest stormwater program possible to economically and equitably achieve our mission. In short, to be stormwater smart. So what does that mean, to be stormwater smart? And we apply this philosophy to all the many programs that we have here in our stormwater program. And I've mentioned a number of these, but they all go toward achieving our mission. We have outreach and engagement. We review development plans and have inspectors that go out in the field, especially on days like today, to make sure erosion and sediment control measures out on construction sites are working well, are being maintained, and keeping that sediment from washing into the creek. We have a water quality program that does monitoring and works hard to improve water quality. We do watershed planning. We have staff that go out and do operation and maintenance that clean out catch basins and pipes and inspect those pipes to see when they're getting too old to achieve their purpose, and help replace and repair those. We have floodplain management group that tracks floodplains and helps keep development out of the floodplain. I'll talk more about that, as well as the financial management aspects of how we're funded. But all of these programs, we try to be smart in how we deliver these services to our customers, to the community. The other part of being stormwater smart, though, is helping our community be smart and understand the risks of flooding and how to stay safe and where to go to get more information. So that's a big part of our charges as well. I'm going to go through 6 goals now about how we try to help our community be smart and how we try to work smarter. The first one is understanding the level of service needs and expectations of the community and setting our priorities, resources, and budgets accordingly. And how do we do this? A lot of it is through engaging with the community, and a big part of our engagement priorities are using diversity, equity, inclusion best practices. In fact, we've just revamped our DEI framework so that we are getting a diverse opinion and feedback from the community. So as we are implementing our programs, our watershed studies, and other program areas, we are looking to get input. So please do reach out to us, get on our website, send us emails. When we have specific projects or program areas, we do put out surveys. If you see those, please do fill them out. We need that input from across the community in order to really serve our community with your expectations. We want a diverse perspectives and viewpoints. Here's an example of our watershed study processes. So we are going throughout the city and updating our watershed studies. We've gone through and done specific watershed studies throughout the community over the last 30 years, but some of these are old. So and let me just define a watershed. A watershed, it's like a big bowl where all of the rainfall that falls in that area flows to the same creek. So for example, a lake, the watershed to a lake would be all of the area that when it rains flows into that lake. All the creeks flow into one direction. Smaller creeks go into larger creeks go into rivers. So those are all in one watershed. And we'll use those boundaries as a planning district to help us understand where flooding is occurring, where erosion is occurring, where water quality problems are occurring. And that helps us focus our capital improvements and other maintenance and improvements to help address those issues. And in this particular watershed in Hare Snipe Creek watershed, part of our outreach basis was a survey as well as in-person meetings. And we got over 600 survey responses, which is very important and helpful for us to get that kind of feedback. Goal number 2, implementing a high quality, data-driven, and innovative program through continuous improvement. This graphic shows monitoring gauges that we have throughout the city. So these are gauges that are adjacent to creeks and measure the water levels in the creek over time. So every one of these squares that has a blue line going across it is one specific location in Raleigh. Several of them are along Crabtree Creek. That's the largest creek we have along on the north side of the river. And then we have a number of these along Walnut Creek, which is the largest creek we have along the southern part of the city. And every one of these locations measures water surface elevation. So as you can see on some of these, and this was a fairly large rainfall event that occurred, it caused the water elevations in these creeks to rise. And at one point, when they get above these warning lines into this red area, that means the creek is flooding at that location. And we closely watch all of these gauges during rainfall events, especially larger rainfall events, or if we know hurricanes are coming, we'll monitor these 24 hours a day as needed to understand what's happening across the city. And that helps us identify before flooding happens. We'll work closely with the Raleigh Fire Department and the Raleigh Police Department to deploy barricades as needed to keep people from driving through flooded roads, or in very severe events, if we need to get out and notify people that they are potentially in danger of flooding in their homes, we will help get that word out as well. So this is a very important part of our overall monitoring program during heavy storms and large hurricanes. Another supplemental part of that network are cameras, these flood cameras that we have, and we share these many with the transportation department, who also uses these in traffic cameras. These allow us to take a look at those critical locations where flooding is apt to occur. Many of them are creek crossings or bridges across some of the major creeks that we have here in Raleigh. Others are low places and roads that we know are prone to flooding, and we have the ability to monitor these cameras at the same time as the flood gauges, and that helps give us additional important information to understand what's going on out in the field, and help notify first responders quickly when we see problems about to occur or occurring. Goal number 3, being good stewards of staff, budgetary, and environmental resources. Working smarter by helping to protect our community and protecting the natural environment. We do have city regulations, and in addition to state and federal regulations related to stormwater and water quality. We recently worked with SMAC, Stormwater Management Advisory Commission, and ultimately with City Council to make our floodplain development regulations more stringent. So this map here on the right is an area in Raleigh, and the colors represent predicted flooding during a large event. And that large event that's usually defined for these purposes, you may have heard it called a 100-year event. It could also be considered a 1% event, because the idea is this is an event that in any given year has a 1% chance of occurring. Now, we've had a lot of big rainfalls lately, so we see evidence of climate change, and we see more intense rainfalls occurring more frequently. So it's even more important today that we plan to be more resilient and keep development out of the floodplain, the areas that we know are prone to flooding. And that's what these regulation changes did. It prohibited new development in undeveloped areas from going into the floodplain. So this was a huge milestone, and we got very good support from City Council. They passed this unanimously, and this will really help Raleigh be more resilient in the future and protect us from flooding down the road. We also work hard to engage with community groups for educational purposes, to inform people. This is a Watershed Learning Network class that we held in conjunction and partnership with some local community nonprofit groups. And these types of activities are so important to help engage the community, help them understand stormwater issues, help them understand how to be better prepared, what the risks are of flooding, and a whole variety of information, so that they can be ambassadors and bring that information back into their neighborhoods and into their community and help spread the word even further. We also expand our flood information system through more creative ways, and this picture is actually a newly installed educational display along the Greenway Trail along Crabtree Creek, and it's right there at Blue Ridge Road, which is not very far from the Crabtree Valley Mall, if you're familiar with that area. These color-coded poles we installed represent the elevations of different flood events. And if you visit this site, it's not normally as flooded as it is in this picture. This was during a large flooding event that we had earlier. Normally you can walk between those poles, and if you walk under the bridge, there's an index or a key that tells you the color coding on the pole and when that flooding event occurred. And many of them are associated with hurricanes, many of which you will recognize the names of, like Fran and Floyd and Matthew, and a number of the events that folks who have lived around here for a long time will remember the devastating effects that Raleigh saw from those flooding events. So this is an important reminder of what can occur, as well as an educational tool and a way to engage the community in conversation that We need to remember these events because it's not a matter of if it's going to flood again, it's a matter of when it's going to flood again. And we need to be prepared, and we want our community to be prepared. That's what we work to do every day. We also have installed, you may have seen these high water wind flashing signs to help folks be aware. These signs have sensors in the low points of the road that when those sensors get wet, these signs start flashing. And that means that there's water on the road that could be dangerous. And so when you see these flashing, proceed very cautiously. At a minimum, the road is flooded. If you see any level of flooding up over the curb line, then turn around and go back. Don't try to drive through the flooded road, because what happens is oftentimes the road could wash away below the water surface, and so you don't know what's below the surface of that water. It could just be a big ditch from the road having washed away. So it's, especially at nighttime, it's so hard to see what's going on. Goal number 4, delivering integrated services and projects through collaboration across citywide programs using partnerships and teamwork. We work with Parks Department a lot. Down at Chavis Park, we work to install what's called silvacells. And this diagram is these underground stormwater detention chambers that collect rainfall. At Chavis Park, it collects all the rainfall from the roof of the community building. And that helps that rainfall absorb back into the soil, much like it was naturally originally. So the whole idea of this green stormwater infrastructure is trying to mimic the natural infiltration processes that occurred before development and help us restore that stormwater infiltrating into the ground rather than just running off into the creeks. And we've done a number of these projects across the city, over 140 and counting. We've put them at Raleigh Union Station. There's a green roof there. We put them at fire stations. We've done a number of projects in parks, and we do projects with individual private community members. And we have what's called a rainwater rewards project. So if that's something that you're interested in, please visit our website, and there's information for how you can put a rain garden or some other green stormwater infrastructure in your yard if you would like to do that. Goal number 5, we need to meet a lot of regulatory requirements, and a lot of those go around how development is done. So this is a very important part of our program. We review all development plans for construction work and development work that's going around the city to make sure they're in compliance with our requirements, erosion and sediment control, make sure stormwater controls are designed and put in place to hold back stormwater peak flows and try to prevent downstream flooding. And we have inspectors that go out during the construction process to make sure that those erosion and sediment control measures are being maintained and are performing well. And then the last one, building and maintaining trust with the community through engagement, awareness, and education of our program mission, goals, and objectives. So reaching out with the community, helping engage them, getting their support for a variety of issues, whether it's educational issues, whether it's pickup of litter, as this photo is. There's a number of opportunities to get engaged and to help spread the word, because we can always use more help from the community and from everyone on this call. I urge you to go to the city's website, look at their stormwater site, ask questions, and reach out to us if we can help more, and then spread the word with our community of the type of work that we do and the opportunities that there are to engage with the stormwater program. So to summarize, when we work smarter, we work hard to get diverse community input through SMAC and public outreach to improve the understanding of needs and equitable solutions. We update our watershed planning to get better data, engage the community, and drive more effective and holistic capital improvement solutions. Improve our flood hazard mitigation program with regulation changes and equitable voluntary buyouts in floodplain modeling and mapping. We use green stormwater infrastructure on city projects because we want to lead by example and encourage that type of GSI use by private development. We improve design standards and mitigate the near and long-term impacts of development and climate change. And finally, reach the community through trusted established leaders and groups to improve engagement, awareness, and knowledge of the program mission, goals, and objectives. So in short, we work hard every day to be stormwater smart. We want to help our community be stormwater smart as well. So thank you very much for attending today. And Ellen, I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you so much, Wayne. We do have two questions. For the sake of time, I'm going to read them both, and then you can answer. The first one is, how do other North Carolina cities compare to Raleigh's system management? And the second is, how does Raleigh's system waste management, stormwater management system deal with the huge influx of new residents?
Yeah, very, very good question. So the first one was, how does our program relate to other communities throughout the state of North Carolina? So the largest communities have a lot of similarities. There is a federal Clean Water Act permitting program that requires the large cities to have some of the very basic stormwater program requirements, such as putting in stormwater detention and erosion control and engaging the community for feedback. And so there's a lot of similarities across the board. However, I do think that the city of Raleigh has a very progressive program in many areas. We do have programs like the Rainwater Rewards program that we help private citizens install rain gardens and other amenities with a grants program. That's a fairly unique program. We also help us with a drainage assistance program if you have flooding or severe erosion that's impacting your house or structures or stream. So there are several elements of our program that I think are very progressive and probably above and beyond the standard stormwater program across North Carolina. And then the second question is a very good one too. How do we address new development coming in to the community? And boy, there's sure a lot of it coming now. Raleigh's a popular place to live, and that's good news from an economic standpoint, and lots of jobs that are becoming available. But it has its impacts on stormwater and water quality as well. So there's a variety of regulations in the UDO, Unified Development Ordinance, related to stormwater. So I mentioned one, there's no development allowed in the floodplain. Probably the most significant ones, though, are every time that there's a new development put in, they are required to put in some type of a stormwater control device that does multiple things. One is it has to hold back stormwater during a large event and only release it very slowly so that the peak flow coming from that development after the development is in place cannot exceed the peak flow that came from that location before development. So the goal of that regulation is to really mitigate the impacts of any downstream flooding from that development. And then the other piece of the requirement is from a water quality standpoint. So there are requirements to put in stormwater water quality ponds and control devices to reduce nutrient loading. The Neuse River is a nutrient sensitive waterway, so we really try to limit the amount of nutrients that are washed into that waterway. So stormwater requirements, things like green stormwater infrastructure, I gave you some examples of those, the Silva cells, all those types of devices help reduce water quality impacts as well. So very good questions.
Thank you so much. And I know it's after 7, but we have one more question. And before I ask this one, do you want to go to the next slide so that people can see your information? If you have any other questions, this is the last question we'll take. Please feel free to contact Wayne. Here is his information. And the last question is, does Raleigh allow development in wetlands area? And how much of a problem is lawn or garden fertilizer?
Yeah, so good question. So wetlands are regulated by the federal government. So it is possible to have impacts in wetlands, but it's a very closely regulated permitting process that has to go through first the state of North Carolina Department of Environmental Quality, requiring what's called a 401 water quality certification permit. And then it has to go through the United States Army Corps of Engineers for what's called a Section 404 permit. So it is possible to have those impacts, but it's difficult. And if there are specific impacts, there have to be offsetting mitigation that is offered in exchange for those wetland impacts. So it's a stringent water quality and permitting process. So Raleigh monitors that process. If a development comes in that does have those types of impacts, we do not issue permits or do any of our development reviews until those other permitting processes are complete. So that's our role in that wetlands process.
Thank you so much, Wayne. So we can go to the next slide, and we are out of time. Again, if anyone has any questions, please go ahead and contact Wayne directly. I just want to go ahead and give a quick shout out one more time to the Raleigh Neighborhood College. This is a residents or neighbors capacity building program presented by the City of Raleigh Neighborhood Enrichment Service, which is a division of the Housing and Neighborhoods Department. All of the information that you have heard through these last 3 Tuesdays, we have obtained from them. So if you want more information, I know everything was very condensed, but please go ahead and reach out to them. Wayne, you can go to the next slide. So the classes are they have 10 sessions. So this was 3 and it was only 30 minutes. Theirs are much longer, much more in depth. But if you're interested, we highly recommend that you become part and you are a student. There's a lot of information about the city services. And one more slide. The person to contact is Luis Olivieri. He has been with us in the last 2 sessions, but here is his information. Please go ahead and take a screenshot, a photo with your phone, or you can always just go ahead and send me a message if you don't have time. We're going to go to the last slide, which is my contact information. Go ahead. This is the Office of Community Engagement. I am Ellen Colon. Please, if you have any questions, reach out to me. I'm more than happy to connect you with any of our presenters, or if you have questions about any of the other department or division, we are here to help and communicate and connect with you in the community. And I think the last slide is just saying thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much, Wayne. That was great information, very short. We went over 5 minutes, but it was so much information. And I know that everyone learned something. So again, thank you, everyone. Thank you for being a part of the last 3 sessions. This has been a very mini series, but again, go ahead and reach out to the Raleigh Neighborhood College if you are interested. And next week, guess who's meeting? Remember that first meeting that we had? The council meetings is on Tuesday. That's next week. So if you have nothing to do, it's at 7 o'clock, which just started. So that will be happening next week. Thank you again. Enjoy, everyone, and have a wonderful day. Good night.